The Netflix adaptation for Cowboy Bebop was always kind of doomed. I think regardless of what people feel about Cowboy Bebop itself, it's a reflection of this constant need studios have to take something that is animated and turn it into live action, even though live action doesn't really add anything to it. These are not specific thoughts to Cowboy Bebop. This is just something I recognize with any kind of animation to real life adaptation. I know a lot of people talk about anime adaptations into live action, but this is a constant trend that's been happening all over Hollywood and in Tokyo. Japan has for a very, very long time been turning anime into live action. There's a lot of projects that just exist like that. There's a live action Full Metal Alchemist, there's live action Death Note movies, there's actually a live action version of GTO, which I hear was actually a really popular drama in Japan. But it also occurs outside of anime. You see it with Disney all the time, remaking their animated classics into live action catastrophes. And there's a number of reasons of why this is done, but I want to save that for a little later in this video. First off, we should probably clarify what we're talking about today. So I recently watched all the Netflix live action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, and I have, of course, a lot of thoughts. And as this channel has developed more into a prominently anime-focused channel, I feel like it's just natural that I need to talk about this. I have a lot of thoughts about animation to live action adaptations, which this intro, I'm sure, has already shown to be the case. But I think it's important to lay the groundwork of how I view this series, which is as a separate entity from Cowboy Bebop. It is a reinterpretation of the story done by different creators to do something different while using the world and characters to explore something. Whether that's something they choose is worth exploring is a whole nother question, but we'll get into that in a moment. For those of you who are not aware, Cowboy Bebop is a dystopian sci-fi fantasy set in the not too distant future, blending a lot of elements from different genres like neo-noir, westerns, and sci-fi. It follows a pair of bounty hunters, Spike Spiegel and Jet Black, who go on various missions to catch bounties, and they are referred to in this world as cowboys. They're eventually joined by a con artist woman named Faye Valentine, and together the crew goes on a number of misadventures trying to collect a bunch of bounties and mainly failing and being very broke in a dystopian, hyper-capitalistic future that just feels all the more real than when it came out in the late 90s. These adventures usually dove into a lot of important themes like of PTSD or letting go of your past or not being able to move forward into your future. Stories about abandonment and found family, and it's a series that combined amazing animation, stellar art direction, perfect character designs, with a sci-fi future that feels incredible but also horrifying. But I'm not here to talk about the anime, and the live action series, while it does share a lot of the same bones and structure of the Cowboy Bebop series, does not capture its heart at all. This is a show that at times feels good. Decent even. There are some things that I think really work in this show, chiefly among them being the character Jet. In a big change from the original series, they gave Jet more backstory, gave him an ex-wife instead of an ex-girlfriend, and a child that, while he's not involved with them, is there and he tries to do as best as he can as a dad. While other characters, like our main character Spike Spiegel, feels like they caught the essence of them in some ways, but nothing really comes together. With Spike, it kind of reminds me of Frankenstein's monster. They get all the pieces together that should create Spike Spiegel. You get a character who's cocksure, witty, sarcastic, has all the attributes that you would expect of a Spike Spiegel character, portrayed by a really well-qualified actor who I've enjoyed in a lot of things previously. When you try to inject the electricity to bring it to life, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for a number of reasons, I think. For one, while I like John as an actor, I feel like he's a bit too old for this role. But the character himself, Spike, what works about him is he's kind of in that stage where he's an adult, but he's also in the prime of his life. Their late 20s, their early 30s, still very much in their prime. And the actor just doesn't look like that, and he's not going to. He's 49 years old right now. And while they are a really good actor, especially in handling kind of sarcastic, quippy characters, it just doesn't work with Spike. Faye Valentine is a whole nother discussion who gets into a lot of the actual structural problems with the show itself, which is, in a lot of cases, its writing. The actress for Faye, Daniela Pineda, does a really good job filling in the role that she's been given, but some of her dialogue just feels off. It's this really crude kind of humor that I've talked about in other reviews. I don't like that every kind of comedy we're getting from these kind of shows these days has to be like a Marvel movie, which makes sense because the writer for this, Christopher Yost, has done a lot of Marvel writing. but the Marvel joke telling structure just feels, in a lot of ways, kind of lazy. It can work in stretches when you have other things going on to make your story engaging, but as it's gone on over the past decade more so, it has gotten grating to a point. I am sick at a smart alecky quip being the entire joke, being the basis for humor. And it very much is the basis for humor in this show. It feels like there's nothing really building on it or making me laugh. I did laugh a few times at things, but not at those quips, and not even at unintentional jokes. There were things intended to be funny that made me feel happy, that gave me a smile. A lot of those things having to do with Jet, and a lot of their moments where they're genuinely happy or with their daughter, you know. And I think this gets even worse when you think of one of the biggest changes they make, which is the change to Vicious and Julia. Vicious and Julia are supposed to be signals of Spike's past. Vicious is Spike's sworn enemy, and Julia is the woman between them who they both loved and fought over long, long ago. But in this series, they expand on that role, which on its own, I was open to. In the original series, Vicious was only around for a couple episodes. You barely ever see him, you barely ever talk to him, he barely says any lines. He's a very stoic character who just doesn't talk a lot. And not a lot of time is spent dwelling on what they think. Julia especially. Julia's only in like 2 episodes, like an episode and a half, some flashbacks in other episodes, but you don't really get a lot of time with these characters. And for good reason. Most of the original Cowboy Bebop was episodic stories focusing on the world around them and their characters going into the world, meeting new people, experiencing new things, and it's a whole different kind of show than what you have here, which is a much more American drama. If you didn't have the name Cowboy Bebop on this show, it would just be a sci-fi American drama series that takes place in space in a dystopian future. It would have, it wouldn't be my kind of show still. I don't like the humor, I don't gel with the characters, and a lot of it feels kind of just thrown together, but you know, it'd be a pretty typical American show. But when you try to take a masterpiece like Cowboy Bebop and condense it and conform it into this package, it just doesn't work. Cause like with Vicious and Julia, they make them a side story to every single episode. All 10 episodes feature Vicious and Julia as a married couple going through marital problems, and also the syndicate, the crime family that they're all involved in. And I just checked out for all of these scenes. I didn't care. I think all the actors in this did a pretty good job doing what they were told to do. They're reading the material that is written and following the direction of the directors. It's just that that direction doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. The special effects in the show are, for a Netflix, drama series, pretty well done. I think if you give it 5-10 years, it's gonna age pretty horribly, but for right now, it seems pretty decent. The costume work, the set design, I think all these pieces are really well put together. The creatives and artists behind these sets, behind these costumes, did an amazing job trying to interpret things that they saw in the show, but also doing their own thing, making it, a workable live action show. The writing is just so hard to listen to. And the editing, oh my God, the editing has so many problems. Here's a scene I remember that's a damning example of both the writing and the editing. In an episode, they get a character named Perot, who has all of these powers, but also because of all the experiments done to him, has a very strong reaction to cats in the original anime. In the live action series, they change it into dogs. And the live action show's method of communicating this kind of emotional trigger from the killer is just so frustrating. So let's do a brief comparison. So in the original anime series, they have flashes of him thinking of when he was being experimented on. He sees the cat, he sees the doctors operating on him, he sees the cat, he sees operations, he feels the pain, he sees the cat comes up in his mind. It is a scar for him. He thinks of the cat that was staring at him all the time this was happening. So it's a mental scar for him that makes him go ballistic anytime he sees or hears a cat. Now let's see what that's like in the live action series.
He hates dogs.
So the series feels the absolute need, for some reason, to when a dogs are barking and he's freaking out and he's looking at the dogs and he's freaking out, they need to cut the nurse and she needs to say, he's afraid of dogs, he doesn't like dogs. Why did he need to say that? But over and over again in the series, they will have moments where things that were done maybe in, you know, in the anime, or things that are just done that are live action specific, are very clearly laid out and told, you know, through editing, through character actions, and then someone just says, and this is why we're doing this thing. It doesn't give your audience any credit to think for themselves, any credit to understand or figure out where the story is going, or to interpret things in any kind of way. It feels the need to take you by the head and scream into your face, these are the actions we're taking. These are why we're taking them. This is the action we're taking. Do not get confused. Do not turn off the show. Keep watching. Keep watching. Keep watching. It drives me insane. And when we get through that, when we get through all of that, the writing, the directing, the editing, we get the last scene in this entire series. And this is not a spoiler because it's been all over Twitter. It's the introduction of Radical Edward. Now, Radical Ed is a character who's huge in the original anime series, absolutely huge. She's one of the best characters in the show, everybody loves her, and this series doesn't have her for the most part, wants to bring her in, you know, at the end for a prelude into season 2, which, okay, fine. You know, Radical Edward wasn't in a whole lot of the beginning of Cowboy Bebop either. It's fine. You mixed up a lot of the events. It's fine. It's whatever. This entire scene, just watch. Just watch a little bit of it.
Spike Spiegel!
No. Spike Spiegel. Not anymore.
Yes, you are. You're Spike. Cowboy! Bounty hunter for hire! Wake up! I have a job for you! A bounty!
This is exactly the kind of thing I have a problem with. Trying to capture the energy of an animated character, of a caricature in a lot of ways, and trying to put that into a real person. It's like the same problem that a lot of people get, you know, an understandable problem a lot of people have with dubs of anime. There's a bombastic nature to a lot of characters that is difficult to translate even into a dub. Even if you have the same movements of the character, the same character itself, if the voice is just a little off, it can feel really annoying, right? Like, you just don't feel in the original Japanese. Not to say anything about the original dub of Radical Ed. The dub version of Radical Ed is amazing. Like in the Cowboy Bebop dub, they do a really great job of actually translating it from sub into dub, but that's by really well done actors and some of the best direction in American dubbing history, because it's one of the best English dubs of any anime, and a lot of people are going to tell you that because it is true. It is a great dub. And now you're taking it a step further. You're taking a character like that, can be lost in translation so easily, and you're just trying to take them out of the anime and put them into a live action setting and thinking that that works. There is no way a character like Ed is going to translate at all, not directly. You have to make changes to that, and that's just what it's gonna be. People don't accept those kind of characters very easily. You have to be very, very cautious, especially when the clash between what this actor is doing is so different than every other actor in the series. And that is not the actor's fault, that's the director's fault. And it's also the editing. The editing is a huge part of this. The way they edit this scene, the jumpy kind of nature of it just feels so off and confusing at times, but not in the right way that you're supposed to feel confused while speaking to an inane character. Just like muddled. Also, just the angles and the things they're having this actor do and the writing, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And there's no way that it was ever going to work making Ed into a live action character like that. It's the problem with animation adaptations into live action. When you're watching an animated show, you're able to distance yourself from it in a way that you cannot do so when you watch anything else. So it's very sad to me that this keeps happening, that we keep going through these cycles of trying to make it work again and again. Stop trying to take animated masterpieces and making them live action. There's a number of things that go into that, and I want to do a full video on just adaptations in general, but there's a whole thing that goes into this that just can't feel right. It can't translate what you need it to translate, and it's sad that this keeps happening again and again and again. When you're doing an adaptation, you have to change things. You have to change things. Anyone who's read a book and then seen a movie based on it knows that you can't do it one for one. If you love a manga, then watch the anime. You know it can't be done one for one. And anime that do try to make it one for one, an example would be Berserk, 2016 and 2017, there was a lot of effort in that series in making their shots look like panels from the manga, but that didn't really work because it's a different medium. There is something you're supposed to add when you bring something into a format with motion and audio. You're supposed to build a bigger experience, which Berserk 2016 and 2017, and of course Cowboy Bebop, the live action series, failed to do. As I mentioned pretty near the beginning there are some adaptations of anime that can and do work, mainly with school life dramas, series that aren't built around or require a lot of animation talent. The point of all this is that while the series does do some things that are smart, while it reinterprets some stories pretty well, I really like how they changed the eco-terrorists to turning people into trees. I think that was some really cool body horror effects. I was really hesitant about giving Jet a family and making him a absentee father, but I think a lot of these aspects, things that they added, did work. But then you have the other things that just absolutely don't, and those other things take up a large portion of this show. Especially all the drama between Vincent and Julia. It just takes up so much time, and it's so annoying. There's more that can be said. There's always more that can be said about these kind of things, but I think I've said all I need to here. Cowboy Bebop, the live action adaptation, is about what everyone expected, unfulfilling. While the series did surprise me in some ways, while it did make a really noble effort to capture the visual style and sensibilities of Cowboy Bebop, there is a soul that is entirely lacking. These characters are entirely lacking, and there's just nothing that's gonna make up for that. One of these days I'm gonna do a video actually on just Cowboy Bebop. I think an anime you should watch on that is well deserved, but for today, this is all I have to say. So thank you very much for watching. I am working really hard on a couple videos. I have some that I'm really excited about, but you'll have to see those coming soon here. Until then though, I wanna thank you very much for watching. I hope you give this video a like, comment if you have anything else you want to say, subscribe if you want more videos like this, and just hope you stick around because I got a lot of good things coming. So until then, I hope you have a great day, a great night, or whatever it is you're having, and stay rad.